my channel, where nightmares are not just dreams, but real stories waiting to be told. Tonight, I bring you terrifying true stories. Stories that will make you question reality. Stories so disturbing they might just keep you up at night. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look behind you.
When Olivia moved into apartment 6B, she thought she had found the perfect place. A cozy, affordable one-bedroom in an old high-rise, overlooking the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The first week was uneventful. She unpacked, settled in, and adjusted to the creaks and groans of the old building. But then the first note arrived. It was slipped under her door while she was at work. No envelope, no signature, just a single sentence, handwritten in shaky black ink. I see you. Her stomach tightened. A prank? A mistake? She shook it off. But then came the second note. I hear you. Her blood ran cold. Someone was watching, listening, but from where? That night, Olivia double-checked the locks, pulled the curtains tight, and tried to sleep. But at 2:42 a.m., something woke her, a scraping sound. Her eyes snapped open. The wall, a slow, deliberate scratching, as if something inside the wall was shifting. Her breath caught. She stared at the spot where the sound was coming from. Then, a small hole. A hole that hadn't been there before. A hole just big enough for an eye. Someone was watching her from inside the wall. The next morning, Olivia stormed down to the building manager's office. She demanded answers. The manager, an older woman named Mrs. Calloway, frowned. 6B, that apartment's had problems. Olivia's hands trembled. What kind of problems? Mrs. Calloway hesitated. The last tenant, Ethan, he left suddenly, didn't even take his things. Why? Olivia asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Mrs. Calloway sighed. Said someone was watching him. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. The notes, the hole in the wall, Ethan disappearing. Then, footsteps. Above her ceiling, slow, deliberate. But 6B was the top floor. There was nothing above her. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice, low, rasping, just above her.
I see you.
Olivia grabbed her phone, hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. She shined it toward the ceiling. There, a gap, a hidden crawl space, and inside it, a face, pale, smiling, waiting. Her scream died in her throat as something dropped from the ceiling. The next morning, the apartment was empty. Olivia was gone. But when Mrs. Calloway opened the door, she found a single note lying on the floor. In shaky black ink, it read, I see you.
Story number 2.
Michael had lived in his house for 5 years. It wasn't new, but it was home. A quiet place on the edge of town, with creaky floors and a fireplace that barely worked. Then, one evening, while rearranging furniture, he noticed something strange. A door. It was in the hallway near the stairs, but it had never been there before. His pulse quickened. He ran his fingers along the wood. Cold. The knob twisted easily in his grip. He hesitated, heart hammering. Then he opened it. Behind the door was a room that should not exist. Dust hung in the air, thick and undisturbed. The room was furnished. A table, a chair, old books stacked neatly on shelves. A mirror against the far wall, its surface too dark. Michael's stomach twisted. How had this been here all this time? He stepped inside. The air was wrong, heavy. The walls felt like they were breathing. On the desk, a single notebook. He picked it up, flipped to the first page. The handwriting was neat, familiar. It was his handwriting. The first line made his blood run cold. Do not stay after dark. Michael turned toward the mirror. His reflection stood there, motionless. Then it smiled. His breath hitched. He hadn't moved. but his reflection had. Slowly, it raised a hand and pressed its palm against the glass. A second hand, identical to his, pressed from the other side. Something was inside, something wearing his face. He stumbled backward as the light in the room flickered. The walls shuddered. Then the reflection whispered, "It's your turn now." The lights went out. Michael woke up on the floor. His head throbbed. The air smelled stale. He scrambled up and ran to the door. It was gone. In its place, a solid wall. "No, no, no!" He pounded on the wall, screamed, tore at the wood, but there was nothing beyond it now. A soft chuckle echoed behind him. He turned back toward the mirror. His reflection stood there, grinning, but the figure in the glass was no longer trapped. It raised a hand in mock farewell and stepped away, free. Michael lunged at the mirror, but the surface rippled, sealing shut. The last thing he saw before the room went dark was himself walking away.
Okay, you made it. But are you sure you are alone? Shadows stretch long in the dark, and sometimes things watch from the corners. If you enjoy the stories, make sure to subscribe my channel before it's too late. Leave a comment below if you are there, but remember, some stories should never be told. I hope I'll see you very soon.